episode this evening. We've got a special guest, somebody I just came across on Twitter. And I don't know an awful lot about him, but he felt as if he was speaking my own mind to me. So we got in touch, and I'd just like to introduce you to Momus. Is that correct, mate? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So I'll give a quick summary about myself. So I'm Momus Najmi. I was born in Kuwait in the Middle East. I was 4 years old when there was a Gulf War over there. At the age of 15, I moved to Pakistan, where I lived for around 9 to 10 years. And after that, in 2010, I came to England, and I've been here since then. So I've been through various immigration processes and stuff to finally, becoming British, so to speak, in the end. Apart from that, I'm a writer. I have a few books out on Amazon. I have a podcast about history and mythology, which is on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, on Twitter as well. It's called the World of Momus Podcast. And yeah, I love history and I love mythology, and yeah, stuff like that. And I'm also an ex-Muslim, which brings a different dimension to a few of my views and stuff like that. So that would be the one of the reasons why I left Pakistan. So
Okay, right. So that's something to get our teeth into
yeah.
then. Yeah. So, like I say, I found you on Twitter, and then and I was just sort of knocked sideways by the things you were saying, and of course, you being not natural born British person,
not native to here. Yeah.
that gives you. I mean, it shouldn't, but it gives your opinions, a force they wouldn't otherwise have had. And of course, you've been to, you spent all that time in Pakistan as well, so that will inform your opinions about stuff that most of us won't know about. So, we, particularly when there's strife going on in the Middle East, everybody thinks they know what's going on, but most of us don't. And so the one of the things that I found is that that lots of people think they know the history of Israel and Palestine. I mean, I thought I did a bit, but the more it goes on, the more I realise how much I don't know. But I've had a little dip into some of the things on your YouTube, and you seem to know an awful lot about this stuff. How come you know so much?
Well, because I have a natural sort of interest towards history and mythology and stuff like that, and religious things, religion itself. There's a reason why I left the religion of Islam was because of how much I read about it. It wasn't to do with the things that they restricted me, just like my disagreements about reading like disagreements with the fundamentals of it, right? So because I grew up within that region, so a lot of things about it. Like Kuwait is very close to Israel and Jordan and Syria, and those areas is very close to it, and they have a history with Palestinians as well, Palestinian Arabs as well. We used to have a lot of Palestinian Arabs in Kuwait. They used to give a lot of humanitarian aid and whatnot. They still do, humanitarian aid. But during the Gulf War, when Saddam Hussein came into Kuwait, that's when people saw the true nature of these Palestinian Arabs as well. Some of them, they sided with Saddam Hussein in a second, right? And all the people that they were working with and working for and benefited from in Kuwait, they started pointing them out because Iraqis were looking for Kuwaitis to capture and stuff like that. So I think so a lot of people's minds woke up towards them, but they already knew what they are like anyways. They don't hold any loyalty towards anyone, the Palestinians. They talk about these lands as if they were always there, but it is sort of like a propaganda machine for them. Most of the support that comes for them in a form of like a state support is from Iran, which is already a troublesome state itself. and also from Pakistan, which is another troublesome state, right? So these two have ulterior motives, right? Pakistan has an ulterior motive of hating the Jews beyond reproach, right? Like they hate the Jews so much that it made me, that was one of the driving factor of me leaving Islam, because I just like it is there in the religion, but you wouldn't find that much in Kuwait. But it is in these days, it might be because of the conflict going on, but I didn't grow up with that Jewish hatred as much because I grew up in Kuwait. But in
Mm.
Pakistan is where you see most of its ugly head come about. They hate it so much that even on the passport of Pakistan is written that you can travel everywhere except Israel, right?
Mm.
So because they don't recognize it, and
Mm.
what we
It's
don't
not in Middle
understand,
Eastern maps, is it?
no, no. What we don't also understand is that in Britain, a lot of the extremism, the Islamist extremism that is driven from Pakistani British people, right? The people who have immigrated over here, or even second, third generation as well. Like, it's not just Pakistan; it's Pakistan and Sudan and Somalia, Syria, Iraq, and those sort of places which are impoverished, right? So they are not that prosperous, and this is how, and they have not that much education in their countries, and they're driven through that. But we also see the people who are of these backgrounds who are educated, they are also driven in those extreme points. And that's where I kind of try telling people, look, this is not a problem of Islamism, it's a problem of Islam itself, and the moderates, the actual moderates within Islam, are the ones who have to actively not follow the edicts of Allah to not be an extremist, right? So
Mm.
it is those are the fundamentals that are baked in over there. So Pakistanis are like, in that form, a lot of Pakistanis are, they are wannabe Arabs, right? So they want to be Arabs. They don't want to associate with their actual heritage of Indian, right? So
Right.
because that's the Indian subcontinent. They, the Muslims were colonizers in the land of India.
Mm.
Pakistan essentially like cries about Palestine, but Pakistan itself is built on stolen land from India, essentially. And, most of the Pakistanis, all of the Pakistanis don't like me saying that. I used to say that even when I was in Pakistan, so you can understand why so many reasons why I had to leave there. But but the thing is that is the essential bit of it, and so they want to differentiate themselves from a lot of things. So they sort of stream into a lot of activism, the Islamic activism that links them closer to to the Arabs, so that they can link their heritage because they have a inferiority complex
Right.
built in.
Okay.
But how I know, like what you actually asked, which I sort of went away from, like how do I know the history of those areas, is a lot of like the history is there within Quran itself, right? So within Quran, Allah is saying that those are the lands of Bani Israel meaning children of Israel, right? So most of the Arabs, they know that those are the Jewish lands. They have always been the Jewish lands. They come out and come back in or whatever, whatever. But those are the promised lands of the Jewish people. Even in the Quran, Allah says that I have given you these lands and they are for you to protect and hold. Right. So God is giving them the authority and like within their own religion. That's why most of the Arabs know that, right? So the whole concept of Palestine is only come about since 1917 or whatever, when the British mandate was given, right? That's when Palestine became Palestine. And very conveniently, most of the people's history begins from that point only, and not from 2000 BC,
Yeah.
when there's a history of Israel in those lands, right? So different forms of like, their history over there. So how I know is like because it was always understood within the Arab world that it is their lands and stuff. But British gave that mandate and stuff, so okay, they can live together. So they should live together and stuff. And obviously, Israel has been an agitator as well for 75 years. They've also been doing stuff which sort of like can be construed as like really serious crimes and stuff. But I'm not too sure about that, anyways. because people exaggerate those bits as well,
Mm.
and they are fighting not against Palestinians, right? They're not, because there's nothing like Palestine anyways, like, there's just a made up thing. But they're not fighting just against Palestinians, they're fighting against an ideology that wants them gone,
Mm.
that
That
wants
seems
to
to be
extend.
that does seem to be
Yeah,
the things that I've read in the last few weeks.
and
Things that I had read before, but there's been a
yeah.
flood of stuff that now. I mean,
So this is something that we grew up with,
mm,
right? Like I didn't grow up within the context of Middle East, like I said, within Kuwait, right? But in other parts of the Middle East, you have that, and I grew up among Pakistanis within Kuwait as well. So this was pretty much like that. It just wasn't enforced as much because it wasn't through schools, and like the people in authority were not saying it, right? The imams were not saying it, the teachers were not saying it in Kuwait, like the hatred for Jews at that time. Or even when I was going to like the mosque and stuff in Kuwait, when I was a Muslim, most of it I couldn't understand anyways because it was in Arabic. And Arabic, I only knew a bit of it.
mm,
Well, I knew conversational Arabic, but not enough to understand all of it all the time, right? So I don't know if it was still there or not. But when I went to Pakistan, that's the language that I could speak, so I understood what everything was happening. It was coming from everyone, from authority, from the schools, from this and that. I saw that in 9/11. Right, that was my wake up point,
mm,
because I
mm,
was like, that's I think so, a year after I had immigrated to Pakistan. So I was
right,
like maybe
okay,
15 and a half or 16,
yeah,
somewhere like that. And that's when it happened, and that's when I saw people celebrating the death of innocent people.
mm,
The straight away the conspiracy of, oh, there were 3,000 Jews who were working in 9/11 twin towers, and just before that, one day before that, they were all given holiday, so they were not
right,
there, any of them. I was like,
mm,
"Oh," but that was given as a fact, as true.
mm,
That was true, like you cannot question it, that is true. So it's sort of like, I don't know what they were aiming at, but in my school assembly that day, because we used to have this assembly, like you would be in the parade ground and stuff, and like people would do whatever the hell we used to do. And over there, our principal led the cheers for the attack.
right,
Right, this is in Karachi in Pakistan, one of
right.
the better cities, like more progressive cities in Pakistan.
Is it right? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's supposed to be, so
yeah, mm,
so this was happening over there, and it shook me because I was like, well, what is going on? Because I was very much into Islam, but the core of it, sort of like, I used to read a lot, and I had read Quran, which most people didn't, in its translation and stuff like that as well. And I just didn't chime with it. It's like, well, we promote the idea in Islam about like not killing the innocents, and blah blah blah, stuff like that. And we only do warfare to defend ourselves. So why are we killing? Like, why are we glad that we are attacking America? Because
mm,
America is not attacking us. We actually get a lot of aid from America.
mm.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what is going on? So
So much of
that's
this makes no sense, doesn't it? So much.
no, but it was like it came out as hatred. So I was like, well, and that is the point. That my point is the point that I seriously started digging more deep into, what am I believing in?
Mm,
What is this God that I'm believing in? This God of hatred, is it doesn't represent me. I don't hate the Jewish people. I was already always uncomfortable with that.
yeah,
That idea, like, not to trust, like, well, how can I hate a whole group of people whom I've never met? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And whatever I read about Jewish people, I kind of like them, because look at them. They have had so much adversity and stuff, and they've overcome it. No matter their history, they've overcome it, and they've prospered as well.
mm,
Why should I? It feels
yeah,
like
yeah.
resentment.
I have to say that I'm not, especially inclined to align myself with Israel necessarily, but
Mm,
I have found that particularly in the last few weeks, we're trying to, we many of us are all trying to relearn all this stuff again
mm,
because it's come up again. Um, but the more I read about stuff, and the more I feel that the Israeli case is much stronger than the Palestinian one. You know, maybe I'm not listening to the right people. Maybe there'll be some very learned people who tell me I got that all wrong. But I don't know. It seems to me that the Israeli case is much stronger. Could we just sort of? I don't want you to sort of reveal more about your private life than you want to. But why did you leave Kuwait and go at 15 and go to Pakistan?
Okay, yeah. So it wasn't by choice.
Yeah.
So so what happens in Kuwait is like even though if you're born over there or live for however long, they don't give you nationality, right? So I'm a Kuwaiti born, but the Kuwait as a country did not give me nationality. My older sister was born over there as well. My parents were got married over there, but they don't recognize you as their own because they give oil profits to the Kuwaiti families. So they restrict those families to just pure Kuwaitis, right?
I see, right. Okay.
So when you're approaching that age when you should be of working age, which I wasn't, I had like 2-3 years left, but my sister was approaching that age, then you either get a work permit or you get out of the country.
Okay, right.
Right. So that was the problem that was coming up. I didn't want to go to Pakistan for very obvious reasons because I was like, already exposed to Pakistanis in Kuwait and I didn't really like them much. My father was sort of given the opportunity to go to Canada at that point, but he for some reason he got that patriotic streak in him, and he was like, "No, we'll go back to the country and stuff." He didn't go back; he stayed in Kuwait because he was still working.
Right.
Well, all of us went back, so he would like come back and forth. So that was the reason of going to Pakistan. It wasn't There wasn't any choice. There were just circumstances that led me over there.
Okay. And then you were there for, what did you say, 9 years, 10 years?
Yeah, 9-10 years. Huge cultural shock. Yeah, 9-10 years because you
Were
experience
you
very
unhappy there?
different. I I was very unhappy. Yeah. But I would say because the thing is, when you're it's such a weird thing. Most people might not understand, especially if they're just born in one country and they've lived in one country, right? So I was born in Kuwait, but I was not a Kuwaiti and I was not an Arab, right? So my immediate family's culture was different to that culture. But my immediate family, my mom and dad and stuff, they didn't really follow the Pakistani culture fully, and I was more exposed to the American culture and the British culture, and I had sort of like have had more influence, more British influence than anything else growing up, right? The literature and the all the stuff. So when I went to Pakistan, it was like another culture that I'm supposed to be a Pakistani from birth because of my parents' heritage and stuff. But I just couldn't find anything common with them. So I had to change a lot about myself to, sort of mingle with them. But I didn't like what I was seeing much. I had some really good friends who are still my friends, but they were also a bit different. They were also like a bit Americanized in a way, a bit more, they were Pakistani, like, but it's a different mentality. They were more educated and were from more educated families and stuff, so they have a different aspect. And in Pakistan also, you have to realize like the literacy rate is very low and the education rate is very low as well, so that comes into the factor of that culture. And so it wasn't something that i I enjoyed it and I didn't enjoy it at the same time. Now looking back at it, I can say I enjoyed it, right? Because I got out of there.
Yeah.
But there was a point where I couldn't see if I could get out or not. And that obviously was not enjoyable. Just knowing like, okay, you might be here for a few years and then you can go, then you can immerse into that culture, whatever it might be, enjoy yourself and get out of there. But as soon as I got there, I wanted to get out, you know. So that made it less enjoyable at that moment. But looking back, I can say, yeah, there were really good moments and stuff, like, apart from the all the other horrible stuff that happened to me over there, but there was still good stuff and whatnot. But yeah. So I wanted to get out of there, and I
And
don't
how
know.
did you? So what was the move to Britain? And why did you come to Britain? And
So I had a
how did you manage it?
I had a obviously I had a lot of choice of going to like different countries and stuff. Could go to America, could go to Canada, could go to Australia and stuff, because I was going primarily as to study, right? So I didn't have my in my mind that I'm going to go to one place and just stay over there. I was like, well, I'm gonna go to some other place, gonna study over there, then gonna probably go head over somewhere else, like check out different countries before I find like where I want to be, sort
Mm,
of thing. That was my plan. I didn't want to go to America because I couldn't align with the American concept at that time anyways, because America was causing, if you look at it, America was causing so much rift and so much misery in those parts of the land, not just like Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Middle East and stuff like that. You just had to be like why do you guys have to do that? Because you know you're causing other people to hate you and stuff. So I just was like, I couldn't align with them as a country, anyways. Britain was a place where I associated with all the time. Even though like the Pakistanis around me and stuff wanted me to hate Britain
mm,
because like they were ruling over us, blah blah blah, stuff like that.
mm,
But I read a lot of British history and stuff, and I love Britain. I was like, I don't care, like that they colonized you guys, but because they had the opportunity, right? So if you had the opportunity, you would have done the same.
mm,
So it's a matter of, for me, it was a matter of opportunity. It wasn't a matter of like they seeked you out to
mm.
destroy you and like then they were racist towards you, blah blah stuff like that. I was like, it was a matter of opportunity. Everyone was doing it. They were just better at it, right?
Yeah,
So
we're,
it
we're
makes
just better than anyone else. Yeah, I
yeah.
suppose.
And that, for me, that was I don't know. People might call me sellout or whatever. I really don't care. That made me admire Britain more because I was like, well, it was the biggest, like the sun never set on the British Empire. Like, how can you ignore that? Like, whatever you might say, oh, this stuff happened, this atrocities happen, or whatever, whatnot. No colonization has ever happened without any atrocity. No empire has ever existed without you know atrocities and stuff. So, but the thing is, it was one of the most successful ones, probably the most successful ones, bigger than the Roman Empire and stuff. And I was like, why wouldn't I want to be a part of that culture?
That's refreshing to hear, actually, because the well, I don't know how really to put this necessarily, but um, other people have put it better than me, actually. Um, that somebody was saying that they'd much rather a chauvinistic and um, domineering culture would be much better than this shower of piss that we've actually got.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
which is the situation
Yeah.
these days, isn't it?
I
So
mean, to be honest, that is what disappointed me when I came to Britain, right? So I came to Britain and I came to London, and I left London within 8 months to go elsewhere.
oh right,
So yeah, because I came to London, I was like, well, this is not England. I
right.
was I was like,
Tell me more. Where did you go?
so I went to Walthamstow, around Leighton.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
some
I
people still
was,
say that's London, but
yeah. But I was studying at Brunel, so I was going towards the west side as well, like towards
okay,
Uxbridge.
okay. Well, that's a
So
long,
yeah,
yeah.
but I just, it didn't feel English to me.
Mm.
I was like, well, while I'm here in London, it's good. Like, yeah, there are different, cultures
It's
and
just international, isn't it?
blah blah
It's an
blah.
international place, isn't it?
Yeah, but it looked like, it's just like a imitation of very, really, really, really bad imitation of New York, right? And I was like, well, but that is not London. Like, that is not the historical London that I've read about, right? So that the way I wanted to go to. This is not the England that I dreamt about. Like when I
Yeah,
came over, it's like I didn't come over here. Like I said in one of my tweets, I didn't come over here for fucking communism and Islam.
yeah.
Okay, I came over here because I love Britain and British history,
Mm.
right? So I don't want to. I wanted. I came here for the love of the country. I had other options, but I thought to myself, well, no, I have to find a home. I can't be a fucking nomad all my life,
Mm.
you know. And I
So
came
you
over
chose
here.
us. You chose us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't choose my heritage. I can't choose my like background and stuff like that. But I can choose who am I loyal to, right? So I chose to be loyal to this country, and didn't just come over here for economical benefits or whatever. Because by the looks of it, like I would have been better off economically in any other country than Britain, right? Because look at it, what's happening right now. You can't even get a fucking GP appointment. So
Yeah.
you know,
I'm alternately feeling very patriotic and very ashamed at the same time. So which is the story of many of our lives, actually.
yeah. But like there's something that there has been a lot of things over the past 13 years that I've been here, and obviously that has been pissing me off, as it naturally would anyone. And I can only imagine how much it would piss off the native population. Right? So stuff like when I went to uni, I found this like
What did you study?
I studied creative and professional writing.
Oh, okay. Well,
So, and after that, I've like done another. I did my postgraduate in creative writing, and then I've done another postgraduate in world history as well. Um, but in that university, there was like my tutor and stuff, and in my lecturer, very well-meaning person, but very timid about like the English culture, very apologetic about it, right?
mm,
It was like, oh yeah, but we did have slavery, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
mm,
Who didn't?
yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, you think like this so that was my first encounter with white liberalism,
Right. Yeah.
right?
The self-hating Brit.
Yeah. So I have always considered myself like, a bit centrist in all regards, but I tend more towards the classical liberalism, right? So, and that was the main conflict within me and within Islam, anyways, because it's very counter to that argument. Because there's no concept of liberalism. I only knew it because I read about it and stuff. So I didn't think that, and this is 2010. So it's progressively it got really worse in universities. I just didn't think that a liberal would be like that,
Mm,
you know that and within a context of a university, that is someone at the position of a lecturer and stuff would be not understanding of the context of history and looking at history in like looking at cultures and history and context. Like, I'm coming to you because I think, regardless of whatever other people say, your culture, your traditions, your heritage, and your people are the best for me in the world. And I would like to be a part of it, so that even though I myself could not call myself a native, my future generations could and be more associated with these lands. Right. So I am choosing to make that step, as someone might have done, 500 years ago, and they would have more heritage than me. But I believe this country will be there for millions of years. Right. So I am doing that. And you, as a native person, are so timid
mm,
to even appreciate the sacrifices of people, the sacrifices of your fathers and your fathers and fathers, you know,
mm, mm,
for you to be able to be fucking free, right?
yeah.
And be what you are. Like, you can, I just do not understand that mentality. It's like these people do not understand. They have not seen suffering, actual misery and actual suffering. They have not known it.
Mm, mm.
They do not know like what those people would have gone through to give them what they have now.
Yeah. It's a very, very. We are. There's an awful lot of ingrates out there.
Hmm.
And Orwell talked about this. Orwell talked about this during the Second World War. Still during the Second World War, even before victory was assured, he talked about people who got a kick out of Britain being humiliated. He said they did. They didn't actually want Germany or Japan to win the war,
Mm.
but they always got a kick out of whenever we lost a battle, whatever it was. And I was in a couple of months ago. I was on holiday in Greece, and I was talking to this Greek chap who's also a very learned fella, and I was asking him about do they have anybody in Greece who actually hates their own country, actually hates Greece?
They hate
And
the government.
he didn't really understand.
Yeah.
He started by saying, "Well, there's people who don't like the government, and
Yeah.
they're anti the government and all." But when I said no, but what I mean is,
Being Greek.
yeah, how if there's a football match between Greece and
They can't imagine it.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Do they want Denmark to win? And he couldn't really understand this. And
Yeah.
I do, I have, I make a point when I, when I, obviously it's not my first subject of conversation whenever I meet a foreign person, but if I speak to them a little bit, I do tend to ask them this. Do you have people like this in your country?
What is your name?
Yeah. Yeah, I harangue them in airport queues. Yeah. Um, but
You also have to see, like, Greece is so fragmented itself.
yeah,
Like, it comes from city states which chose to be together. They have warred between themselves, the Sparta and, like, the Peloponnesian wars and stuff. They have warred between themselves. One has taken over the other and stuff, and still they love
yeah,
Greeks, the
yeah,
concept
exactly.
of one unified Greek people,
Mm,
even though they actually so different to each other. The Cretans from the Athenians from the Spartans, they all Macedonians, they all so different,
mm.
but yet, like, they have a unified vision
Yeah,
of, like, they
and
can't
something that
even
we seem.
imagine
Yeah, I say that we seem not to. That's not actually true. It's the people at the top of
the
society.
vocal voices. Yeah.
Yeah, these are the people that um, seem to just despise everything about the place they come from,
Yeah.
and I'm not really quite sure what it is. I mean, it's evolutionary. It makes no sense. Why would you have people
Yeah.
like that in
Well,
your own society?
historically, it doesn't make any sense as well. Like, if the French wanted to hated themselves, it would make a lot more sense. But for the British to to hate, but I don't understand and they think like anything out of Britain is culture. They think there's a void over here, that there's no culture,
Mm,
that there's no Welsh culture, there's no, like, this tweet that came about, like, just the Welsh labor, the idiots that they are, they put this tweet out that there's no Welsh history without the history of black experiences.
yeah.
I said, what the fuck are you talking about?
Uh, yeah.
31,000 years ago, they were Britons over here.
Mm,
From the Iron Age, from them came the Welsh, the Cornish, and, like, the other people and stuff like that.
mm,
What are you talking about? It's
yeah.
like they have their own bloody language that is different from all the other languages that we have.
Mm.
You know,
It is ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's
yeah,
I
it
struggle to
seems like
understand.
revisionist sort of a thing,
Mm,
which is a strand of thing that I see, like, that you can see in communism, right? So that's what communism started to do. So I'm married to a Polish person, right? So her family, like, lived during the communist era within Poland and stuff, obviously, because, like, they only uh, got out of it in 1990, 1991 when it all broke out. So that is what they tell me, like, that's what the communists tried to do all the time, to
right,
say that their history was nothing,
right.
you know. But the Polish people were very, like, aware of their own history because they didn't used to have a country for 100 years,
Mm, mm,
so, like, but this is the same strand of thing that I feel within these people. And it's not surprising that most of these vocal voices in the elites and stuff are actually Marxist or socialist,
mm, mm,
right? So knowingly or unknowingly, they buy into these ideas, and they was like, you can't, that's why they hate Americans, because Americans really love their country,
mm,
you know they don't like this attitude. It's like, okay, you cannot like this attitude, but you cannot, or you can also not dismiss, what your country has been.
mm,
Any other country, if they would have had the history of Britain, they would be shouting about it 24 fucking 7.
mm,
There will be channels dedicated to just that.
mm,
you know there will be broadcasts going out, there was channels going out, like every street would have that, like, oh, we did this, or, on this street we fought this war. Every war is so important and stuff. Oh, this place we had this hero. Like, every single area would be crying about, like, their stuff. And if there was any other country, so this concept that any other culture than our own over here is somehow superior, and has more to give in. That's where that concept that I saw, like the Welsh history is nothing without the black history, because you're saying like, this is just like the white rubbish. So
Yes.
unless something else comes in from outside, that enriches it.
Mm,
It's like, no, no, this was already rich
mm.
in itself.
Yeah.
There has been contribution and there will be contribution from outside, and those are good. We can recognize those contributions and stuff, like from people who bring in, but we can't belittle what is already here, and
Mm,
that has to remain, the primary culture. That has to remain the thread that we all bind to. Otherwise you don't have a country, you have subcultures and subgroups. How we used to call in Pakistan, like every corner has a mosque of their own. That's what Pakistan used to say. That's how you fragment a country, but every corner have a different mosque with a
mm,
different imam giving a different message.
mm.
So you don't have a unified like concept. That's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, much of what you're saying is music to my ears, you know. But yeah, I mean,
It's depressing.
it's bewildering, is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't fathom this anti-British self-hatred. I can't fathom it. I
No.
can't see what use it has. I remember this was years ago. This was been over 30 years ago. And I had a girlfriend at the time who moved in kind of sort of lefty circles. I mean, she was fine, and I used to sort of, introduce my sort of patriotic viewpoint and stuff, and she'd take it on board, but we'd meet with some of her friends, and there was this one lefty guy, and I just said, well, he was sort of, just talking down Britain and England, whatever, and I said, well, this is the country of Shakespeare and Milton, and he said, oh well, what's British culture? Football hooliganism, and that's what he said, and he was really aggrieved that I actually wanted to, you know, tell the truth, really, tell the
Yeah.
truth about the culture. Um, it was,
These people are so historically illiterate, right? Even when you take the concept of football, it hasn't been there for like 150 or so years, anyways, right? So how can you, even within that small faction, that you can associate a country in a continuation from 1056 to
mm,
now, but
yeah,
the country has been there from before, from the time of Iron Age and stuff.
mm,
How can you say like it is nothing?
yeah. Well, I don't know. It's endlessly puzzling. Um,
Everything in this world that we have right now, everything that we have in the Western world and beyond, is because of Britain. Because of industrialization,
mm,
we have everything, right? Because the Romans started like that expansion of like, progress and stuff. Britain took it forward, and they actually progressed. Every single area has been progressed or influenced by Britain. They might not have invented things by themselves, but they enabled you know that process where you could do that. It took the world forward. Everything that we have right now,
mm,
including the fucking internet, right?
yeah,
So the
yeah.
things that they cry about on, so it's sort of like, you can say, okay, oh, I don't like these people, I don't agree with these people, right? So I can say like, okay, I don't dislike Chinese, but I don't agree with their government, right? So a lot of, for obvious reasons. But if they are, I cannot deny their inventions of
Mm,
how, like, their China is probably the only country which has a continuity from ever, and
mm,
they've always remained Chinese. Like, even in Britain, that like the Normans came over, and that's became Britain, sort of a thing, through the mixing of locals and stuff like that. But
yeah,
China has like remained like China, you know
yeah. It has been for 20
yeah.
centuries, isn't
You
it?
can't deny their philosophies, like apart from communism, their philosophies and their inventions and all the things. You can say like, I don't like them, but you can admire them for what they have created. Just
Exactly.
like, if an artist creates an art, you can admire the art, and even if you find like, oh yeah, this artist was actually a sexual deviant, who isn't, but all of them are. But you can still say like, yeah, but the art is separate from the artist as well. So
Mm,
even that admiration is not there,
mm,
which is like even more bewildering. It's like, well, but you have the concept of civil service, the concept, all of these that have come about, right? You can sort of say like you admire those things or whatever it might be. At least you can say that.
mm,
They can't even associate with, I don't understand this self, because I have not witnessed it anywhere.
mm.
I've not seen it at like this level of self-loathing. Now, this level of self-loathing can be found a bit in Pakistan these days because the government has, you know, just it's horrible living in Pakistan right now. So the people are disassociating with the government way too much. So you can, but still, when there's a cricket match on, it
Yeah,
doesn't fucking
yeah,
matter.
yeah, yeah. They want to
Uh,
support Pakistan. Yeah.
yeah, everyone just comes. So sort of like I can say like, oh, I don't like Pakistan and stuff because of my experiences, but I can at the same time admire their level of patriotism,
Mm,
even though they have successive governments who have been so fucking corrupt, right? And we have been harboring them over here in England, which I really hate, like those politicians and stuff.
yeah.
They're still doing that. What they did with Imran Khan and stuff, even though I didn't agree with Imran Khan, but the whole process and stuff like that, even then they have still a thread of their, identity,
Mm,
which they still want to latch on to. And we who have been living in prosperity for so long over here, we just is very ungrateful, like, of people. And I get pissed off more because it's like, well, I have come over here, because of reason, and now you're shitting this country.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to listen to anyone saying bad things about Britain because, like, no, fuck you. I
Mm,
make the decision. Why are you selling my decision? Like,
mm,
there was a reason why I chose over here. If you don't like it, immigration works both ways. Fuck off. I
mm,
don't care where you were born, right? So if you
yeah.
don't like it, if you
Mm,
think the world is better somewhere else, if you don't like it, either work towards finding solutions
mm,
or piss off, right?
yeah.
Like those two things.
Mm,
If you can just keep on fucking moaning about it and just like bringing misery to other people who actually want to celebrate things and stuff like that, I might not agree with the whole royal system, right? So, but I also don't have much of a place to talk about it because I am not native to this land, right? Personally, I would hate the idea of republic because I think the presidential system is a disaster.
mm. I don't think it's better than a monarchy, is it? I
No,
don't.
no, that's the only point that I support constitutional monarchy, because the other systems are not better, right?
Yeah.
Not because I support constitutional monarchy,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to put something in place. I would prefer if there was an elective monarchy, right? So it wasn't based on a family, but it was still constitutional monarchy, which is more active actually, which does act as a state, or does sit like sort of at the House of Lords and directs the House of Lords and stuff. So a more involved head of the state, acts as a president, but a president for life, but
Mm,
it is elected, right? And then we have a set of rules and stuff for how that person gets elected, prerequisites for that person, can be based on the level of education, the level of physical fitness, like, or whatever, like, shitloads of tests and stuff. And so
mm.
we produce the most elite
Quite
people,
interesting. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then say, okay, these are the five most elite fucking motherfuckers of these lands. Now choose from among them,
Yeah. I
right?
actually quite. I mean, I quite like that idea actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Particularly the physical fitness one.
yeah,
It's quite a good one.
yeah. But
Yeah.
what happens with that is like we keep the traditions. We keep the traditions of how we do our ceremonies, how we do everything, because there's still a king or a queen, right? There's still that head of the state. It just doesn't revolve around one family then,
Mm.
and it sort of involves more people, right? So we don't just put up like any loony up there. We don't just put up like someone like Boris Johnson over there,
Yeah.
or Keir Starmer or someone like that.
Oh,
Like,
man, stop, stop.
exactly, we have a proper set of rules where someone like, if you see it like Prince William, he would be like a candidate for it.
Yeah.
He's a better candidate for that role than anyone else in his family,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So, but we are we don't have any competition to him,
No.
right? So it would be better if there were 5 other Williams, and then we
Yeah.
could choose the best of the William, and then we have a system at the back of checks and balances and accountability. If this king or queen is becoming too tyrannical as a
Mm.
head of state, then they can enforce and they can out it, right? But this elected, I read about a bit about how they used to have it in Kievan Rus in the ancient times in Russia, where they had the Kievan Rus Empire, which incorporated all the Ukraine, Belarus, and those areas. There was a region within that where they used to have a prince, and the people, the sort of like the council members or whatever they were, they used to elect a prince, and
Okay.
that prince was like the head of state, and he used to lead the army
Mm.
when the invaders came in. So he was sort of like a general and the head of the state and stuff,
That,
but
that,
they could also kick him out.
yeah, that is what kings should do, really, isn't
Yeah.
it? At least they should at least,
Mhm.
lead in battle. They should at least
Yeah.
lead in battle.
But we
But
didn't have a king leading us in battle in World War II as well.
yeah.
So that concept was already gone of
Mm.
kings and stuff. And now we just have this empty seat sort of a thing, which even no matter how worse the situation gets, they just don't intervene. And I'm like, well, I like the idea of kings and queens, but I like the idea of kings and queens who actually act like kings and queens.
Yeah, I would like to have. I've said this before. I mean, I in a way, I would quite like the monarch to have more power in
Yeah.
order, mostly in order to protect us from a
From
tyrannical
these.
government.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, but of course that never seems to happen.
Yeah.
Um, just to bring us back
Yeah.
up to date. I mean, I've been, the things that have happened in Israel and and Gaza and stuff.
Mm.
Like I say, I'm not especially wedded to the idea of supporting Israel, but like you say, there's plenty to admire.
Yeah.
And the Jews are a bit annoying because they're always so successful and they're always so intelligent, but they're not the only annoying. I mean, there's Germans and Chinese and Japanese. They're
Yeah.
all a bit
Yeah.
annoying. All
Yeah.
these very successful bunch. But I have to say that I was, after the attack by Hamas. I mean, I think I'm getting this chronology right. I mean, it was like the day after there was all these supposed protests,
Yeah.
for the Palestinians.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, the Palestinians didn't require any sympathy.
No.
At that point, it
No.
was the Israelis that required
Yeah.
sympathy, and they didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I thought there was something that was quite interesting as well, is that, a day or two into that, you had the British government, and other governments around the world saying we stand with Israel and stuff. And I thought what was interesting about that was that when Rishi Sunak said what he said, I got the feeling that they probably thought that being supportive of Israel was the popular position.
Yeah. Everyone would have thought so, given the
And then,
brutality of Hamas
exactly,
attack as well.
but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
The opposite happened.
Yeah.
And the bodies weren't even cold.
No.
And suddenly, where people
Bodies
were,
weren't even recovered. They weren't even
yeah,
counted.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just astonished by that. I was astonished that
So was
you know,
I.
yeah, you can criticize the Israelis, you can criticize
Yeah.
Zionism, and you can support the
Yeah.
Palestinians, but
Those were
when the bodies,
civilians,
yeah,
women
but
and
when the
children.
bodies weren't even cold,
Yeah.
they were just. It was just astonishing what happened.
No.
And I wondered if, I do sort of hope that something will happen that wakes people up, and you know there was all sorts of things that should have woken people up, like the grooming gangs and stuff like
Mm.
that should have
Yeah.
woken people up. I mean, if that shouldn't have,
Yeah. I've been
they
saying about that for so long, being from the from Pakistan, being amongst them. I've been
mm,
saying that there is a problem within Pakistani people who are, especially who are men who are immigrating over here, who like
mm,
first generation ones. There is a streak in them, the sexual deviant streak in them, because they
it-
see it as justified, right? So they are
right,
sexual predators, and
yeah,
they see it as they do it because they see it as justified,
right,
you know, because they
yeah,
don't consider white women
mm,
as human, basically, in that sense. They're just bounties of
yeah,
conquering, like, stuff. And that's why they were so okay with all the brutality of Hamas, and that's where most of them have been okay with it. Even the Muslim women have been okay with it. Why? Because this, oh yeah, we attack people and we take sex slaves and we do stuff to them. It is justified. Like, they're not humans, they're women's, they're rats, they this and that, like, the dehumanizing language, and I was shocked from I wasn't that shocked with the left because I've been disillusioned from them for a very long time now.
mm,
But I was shocked with them because this wasn't just an attack by Gaza. This wasn't just like few rockets that went in, or even the army came in and they attacked the Israeli army and stuff. No, the stuff that they have done
mm.
is
But
just
it's grim. It's unbelievable.
fucking horrible. Like, is beyond anything that I could imagine.
Mm.
Still, these third wave feminists, these fucking communists and stuff, they
Quiz
have
for
the
Palestine.
audacity to come in and support Hamas. It's like
Yeah.
when you're saying free Palestine, you're not saying free Palestine, because that's not what those Muslims mean. Okay, this is something people have to get it out of their head. When Muslims, specifically those Muslims, say free Palestine, they don't mean the West Bank and Gaza. They do mean from river to the sea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so when you say, oh no, we just want a two-state solution, no, you might want a two-state solution, but the Muslims that are over there, they want the whole of those lands.
Mm,
And they don't just want to, like, exile Jews, they want to kill them. They just showed you what they intend to do to them. And then every bit of paranoia of Israel is justified.
mm,
Every bit of their security measures, their harassing of people and stuff for security reasons, is justified because their fears are justified. They know these people, they speak their languages.
mm,
And it's obviously it's not all of them. It's never all of them.
mm,
It's never all of the Muslims and stuff. But when a vocal minority takes over, then it becomes all of them.
mm.
There are how many, 2-3 million Arabs that live in Israel as well. They are Muslims that live in Israel and they're
Yeah.
part of their Senate and stuff like that. So it's obviously it's not all of them. They're in the army and stuff, like, which people just seem to ignore that. It's like, no, it's not an Israel and Palestine problem. It's a Muslim problem. It's an Islam versus Judaism problem. And the reason why I think Britain has to support Israel is because, not because of any loyalty to Israel itself. It, they should be, because there is another thread within the Western values and culture and the Western canon, and that is the link from Jerusalem to the West. The protection of Jerusalem is very, like, whether people believe in Christianity or not, or Judaism or not, that that concept of Jerusalem is the epicenter of Western sort of ideology.
Mm.
That's where it springs from. Losing that as an iconic and sort of link loses all the power of the West.
Do you think really as
Yeah,
much as that? Yeah.
this is what I believe in. Like, us losing that, because what happened when the Ottoman Empire took over those lands? Then came the Ottoman Empire era. The whole of, like, they went into Spain, they went into everywhere, and they ruled those areas.
Mm,
And then they constantly attacked and stuff, because it shifts the power, right? The power is not an actual, like, missiles and rockets and nuclear bombs. That's not power. The power is ideology, and, like, it's the idea, you know
mm,
and
mm. It
the
seems.
idea of letting Jerusalem fall into the hand of an ideology that is anti-you, that is anti-West, right?
Mm,
Islam is not compatible with West because it's against West, which people just don't like. It doesn't matter, oh, if the Muslims, your neighbor Muslim, is nice or not. That doesn't matter.
mm,
Islam as an ideology is against you. Unless that is reformed by the moderate Muslims, it will remain against you. And letting an iconic s- country and the place and Jerusalem fall into their hands is a problem. Is a problem because then nobody will see you as the power that you're supposed to be. Right?
Mm,
The influence goes away, and people will say like, oh, people become like isolationists. It's like, yeah, I just want to be live in England and stuff. It's like we don't live in that world anymore, where you can do that and be prosperous. you know that can only happen when you kick out all the other people, right?
mm,
Which is not going to happen because it's not within the laws, and it's very hard to do, right?
mm,
It will incur a lot of violence and whatnot. We are tangled with all the other Western countries so much that we cannot be an isolationist anymore.
mm,
And we are like, we form like, our borders are similar to Islamic borders, where our borders are not on just one country. Our borders are sort of like all the Western countries. That's why we got up for Ukraine as well, because we saw that there's a threat coming,
mm,
that
mm,
Ukraine might not be connected to us,
mm.
but the borders are very close to us, and the NATO borders are the Western borders, like sort of a that sort of a concept.
Yes.
Now, I am not much of a globalist in that sense, because I hate globalism, but in the sense of security, that plays out, and how we sort of interact with other countries and other powers and stuff, that plays out. So I think so that's why the concept of Israel is important. And losing them, like losing Israel as a country, would mean a massacre of a lot of people.
Mm,
and,
mm,
and that would break West, because that would already the soul of the West is broken. But that was just like, you know you can't live with that guilt. That is too much. That was already too much in the Holocaust, when people actually found out what had happened. That
mm,
is why, like, the whole of the West has gone on to this whole era of not wanting war, because of those horrors.
mm,
If we let this happen, then we will be conquered, because
mm,
we wouldn't have that temerity left in us. It would break us so much, that sort of like, seeing what they will do to them.
mm,
I have I might be talking out of my ass, right? But th- I think so. Countries have spirits, like, they have a soul. And people might say, you call that bullshit or what, I don't care. I think so. Every country has a unique soul. Like, there might be differing opinions and thoughts and stuff, but they would have a soul. Britain has a soul. And if this is let to happen, Britain losing the connection to Jerusalem as well, and not sort of intervening when they should have, and
mm,
it resulting in the massacre of Jews on that scale, I think so it will break that soul completely.
mm.
You know,
Well, you see, so much of what appears to be happening in so many ways. Like, for instance, you must have seen the pictures of the mass praying
yeah,
in Downing Street. I mean, there's no reason. There's no
no,
reason at all why they needed to pray in Downing Street.
it's
There's no
not
reason
allowed
at
in
all.
Islam.
It was just parking their tanks on
Yeah,
our lawn. That's all it was.
yeah,
No, that's all it was.
yeah,
And I do think that people really need to start pushing back on this. They
yeah,
really need to, because I mean, it seems to me, and from what you're telling me, it seems to confirm it, is that all these people seem to respect is force,
yes,
is
force
power.
of power.
Is that when we compromise on something,
Yeah, we've
it
already
seems to
lost.
me that they don't view us as, oh well, he's just being reasonable.
No,
Oh, he's just being reasonable. He's
weak.
just trying to find a way, a central way. They just see weakness.
Yes,
That's how I
yes,
feel. That's
yeah,
what I'm getting all the time.
yeah,
And it's in the nature of civilized people to try and find
yeah,
compromises and things. But it it just seems completely obvious to me. I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
And you know, like that part that you said about the those people that were praying on the streets, right?
Yeah.
That's not even allowed within Islam.
Yeah.
So that is not allowed within Islam. Islam tells you that your prayers and stuff should not be a matter of disturbance for the public.
All right.
And Islam says when you go into foreign countries, you should respect their laws and you
Mm.
should respect their king as your king and you should follow them as they do. So you have to respect those lands. You cannot just pray in the open street like that because it shouldn't have a disturbance for you as well because you're breaking connection with God because you like all the sounds and stuff like that. So what are they actually doing? This is an overriding Islamist ideology that has taken over anything that Islam could have been. And that happened a long time ago when they made Sharia laws and stuff, and promoted the Sharia more and more. And
So how long are we talking here?
like sort of after the death of the Prophet and stuff,
Okay.
I think the Quran was formulated after his death as well, like how it is. So when you pick up the Quran right now, like it's not really in the order of the revelation. The chronology is not in the order of the revelation, is how they ordered it, and made a copy of it. But either way, like it's within like Kuwait or Saudi Arabia and stuff, they won't allow this. They won't allow just people like gathering and start praying and say, like, no, we build fucking mosques for this. Go to the mosque. Why are you disturbing other people? And everyone goes to the mosque anyway. So what are you doing? Why are you on the streets and
Mm.
stuff? Blocking people's way and stuff. That's not the way to do it. I've seen people praying on the trains and on the buses and stuff. It's like, no, you definitely cannot do it because the whole concept of prayer in Islam is you're praying towards Kaaba. So if you're traveling, your
You're going
location
like
is
this and
changing all
moving
the
around.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't find east, can you? When you're on
No.
a bus.
Yeah, and it was already said like if you are like traveling by plane or something and you miss the prayers because there are 5 times you pray, right? And there's particular windows that you have to pray within, otherwise like you can't pray. You have to pray some other prayer like to make up whatever the fuck, right? So, but the traveling thing is like you do a separate traveling prayer afterwards
Right.
that covers all the missed prayer, right? So it's not like you're not gonna miss it. So I don't understand these people. I have a feeling because I've left Islam for so long, so I don't know how many other sects are there and like how many other ways that they have started justifying things. I see Islam as I see communism in a way, right? So there's a lot of tactics that communism has used, like, oh no, I'm not a communist, I'm a Marxist. Oh, I'm a Maoist. Oh, I'm a
Mm.
fucking third rate feminist or whatever, and I'm this and I'm that. Like it's like no, no, no. Oh, I'm woke or whatever. No, your core is the same.
Mm.
Now you're just distracting us. Your
Mm.
core is the same. And this is just like with Islam. I'm Salafi, I'm Wahhabi, whatever. No, your core is the same. So unlike we have to deal with these cores as well.
Mm.
So that's the problem, that this is not allowed in Islam, and because we don't have knowledge of it, and our advisors within these authorities are Muslims themselves,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we don't have the right to tell them, like, because diversity and inclusion, blah blah blah. So we
Mm.
can't tell them like, no, 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 what are you doing? A, this is not allowed in our country anyways,
Mm.
and B, this is not allowed even in your own religion. So disperse,
Yeah.
you know,
Why do you think they don't do it?
because they're scared. Oh,
Because,
someone is gonna call them Islamophobic. It's like, so fucking what? People
well,
call
exactly.
me
I mean,
Islamophobic. So
that's a pretty pathetic thing to be scared of, isn't it?
mhm.
You're basically being scared of being called names.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
happens because you do not think your country to be better. You
Mm.
do not think it's like, oh no, but all cultures are equal. Who the fuck told you that?
Mm. Yeah.
No culture, no
Somebody from a
person is
worse
equal.
culture. Somebody from a worse culture.
Yeah,
I- Yeah.
it's like, I'm sorry, but there is a concept of worst cultures, right? Like, okay, let's discuss a worst culture, right? In Papua New Guinea. In Papua New Guinea, what they do to boys is like one of their tradition. I think so. It's Papua New Guinea. One of their, within a tribe or something, their tradition of a boy coming of age is certain men fucking that boy, right? and
Yeah.
right, there's a
Uh,
so I'm sorry, but am I supposed to say that culture is very good?
yeah.
Culture, no, that culture is fucking disgusting, right? So
Mm.
when there was a culture of sati in India where they
Yes.
would, yeah, who ended that?
The British.
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Are fucking Indians grateful for that? They are grateful for it ending, but are they
Yeah.
grateful to the British for ending it?
Yeah.
Like, no, no, they just ransacked us. It's like, yeah, but you still would have been killing your woman so
Mm.
far. Like, that
Yeah.
still would have been happening. So obviously, there was a concept in Britain to recognize, no, our culture is the best culture.
Mm.
That's why we're going over there, right? So you can say like that's a bit too egoistic and stuff,
Yeah.
but
So
they
what? So
so
what?
what? You have to have the confidence, and they were still learning from other cultures because British culture didn't like just stay stagnant
Mm.
when they were going to the other countries, and they went to India and they picked up so many other things from there. They brought over, they went to other countries. They just said like ours is better, but yours is good as well. Let's see what you have got. Let's take the good things from you.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
what any smart empire or country would do who
Yeah.
had means to do it, right? So this concept comes in because we've been told over here from schools onwards that apparently we are the fucking slave drivers. We invented slavery, not that it always existed. Don't teach that we were the only ones who ended slavery as well. No, no, don't
Yeah.
teach that.
Yeah.
But like, so keep on putting it down to a point where you have, if you wave your flag,
Mm.
that you considered racist.
Yeah.
Not just
But,
me standing in the street, not me. They won't tell that to me. They would
mm.
just call me coconut or something that is like,
Yeah.
white
That's
from
nice, isn't it? Yeah.
inside, brown from outside. They call me names like that. But just a person waving, not saying any slogans, just standing and waving their flag. Oh, you fucking racist.
Yeah.
I cannot understand. I tried telling that to my wife who's Polish,
Mm.
and she's very patriotically Polish, right? So she's like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I have a Union Jack on my like, on a lot of my things and stuff,
Mm.
because it's like, well, you know, people like, oh, why do you have that? So why do you think? Why do you
Mm.
Because I fucking like where I live. That's
Yeah. What do they say when you say that?
no, it's like, oh, it's interesting
Mm.
because they know like I'm not someone who would back down
Mm.
when challenged. And they are like, they're trying to be like little pathetic pussies that they are, passive aggressive and stuff like that. I was like, I'm sorry, I wasn't born with this sort of culture where I was that you have to be, a bit chauvinistic.
Mm.
You have to be a man, you know. And
Yeah.
my wife being Polish, she has the same mentality, you know. So
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
kind of people you
Mm.
mess with.
Yeah. 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 Well, I'm always surprised by these women who don't appear to want men. And what do they want?
Um,
I suppose they just
it's a
want somebody
it's a
to dominate.
concept of resentment. I think so. Like something has happened to you. It's like the ire of a scorned person, right? A woman or a man. But something has happened to them, and they just become anti everything. It's like, I'm sorry it has happened to you. I'm sorry maybe a man has mistreated you or whatever. But that doesn't reflect on the entirety of humanity, right? Like we have existed together. It's a cooperation. It's not one is better than the other and stuff. Is one is better at certain things than the other person, and the other sex, and the other sex is better at certain things than the other one, right?
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how you have cooperation. You have like, you're not all good at everything, like, and why are you trying to be that? Like you losing yourself in that battle. It's just fucking stupid. But I think so it's a lot of it is resentment. That's where the support for communism and stuff comes from as well, from the north of England, because they have been left behind
Mm.
for so long and stuff. And that is the fault of Britain itself,
Mm. It
of
is. Yeah.
leaving them behind so much,
Yeah.
shutting down mines and stuff, but not creating,
Yeah.
alternatives for
Yeah.
them.
Nothing concrete for people to do.
Yeah,
People.
and that's what
They
happened.
used to build ocean liners in the north. You
Yeah,
know, and now they're working in call centers. Yeah.
And they wouldn't have like these concepts so popular over there, even in the north, the communist concept and stuff, if Britain itself wouldn't have disenfranchised the different parts of their country because they
Yeah.
didn't need them. So
Yeah.
they, there is a cause, like there is a reaction from a cause, like and stuff like that. But you have to give them, like, you can't expect people to have a better vision of the future within England as well, unless, like, you can't have the young people grab onto that unless you enable them. Like, the people cannot buy houses right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
find proper jobs, men cannot find meaningful jobs, they all have to get like qualifications and stuff. There's no jobs on hand, we don't have manufacturing, it doesn't pay that much anyways. If there was manufacturing, people don't have a purpose, so how can they buy into a country? Obviously
Yeah.
that country, they're gonna hate that country.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. They're
and
certainly
that
not
we
going to fight
understand.
for it, are they? It's
Yeah, they're not gonna fight for this country because this
yeah.
country has, according to them,
Mm.
and constantly people are being told that they are victims, and like, every single thing that happens to them makes them a fucking victim. Every little minor thing, then they put on their profiles, oh yeah, I'm suffering from anxiety, and like, it's like, they make their problems their identity, right? So if you make your problem your identity, how the fuck are you going to solve it? Because you don't want to solve it now, because you're going to lose your identity.
Yeah.
So if you fix your problems with anxiety, now you can't put that on your profile anymore, right?
Mm.
If you have a disease or something, mental disorder, which most of them have anyways,
Mm.
but if you put that on there, then you associate with it, right? I am dyslexic. I have never bothered to put that on my profile. I'm dyslexic. I
Mm.
get the help for it,
Mm.
but that made me like read more and more and more and more. I read like ferociously
Mm.
because of that reason. Because I'm like, fuck you, you won't beat me. Still gonna read. It might take me a little longer, but I'm still gonna do it.
Well.
You know,
Yeah.
Where is that? Where is that
Yeah.
spirit gone?
Well, that spirit's going to have to. It's going to have to come back one way or another. It's going to
Oh,
have to come back. It's Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's. I suppose one of the things that is uh this idea of the self-hating
deprecating.
Brit.
Yeah,
The strange thing about it is, it's how all of these people have managed to rise to the top of society because all of our
they
institutions.
have guilt.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the guilt
Yeah.
that they have. They're
Yeah. Very
filled
much.
with guilt that they can do it, and in a way, self-deprecating thing is culture, right? Like, is an overriding British culture. It keeps you humble,
Hmm.
which is a good thing. But overdoing it
Yeah.
is a problem. Like, because then you are looking for misery. Like, you can't be fucking happy. You can't be happy that you've achieved something. You're sort of like, yeah, I achieved something, but look at that. Oh, like, those people are like
Hmm.
so poor and stuff. You just don't enjoy it. It's like a
Yeah.
lot
I
of
often
people
find
then
the
will say
people.
like, why the fuck do I want to be successful? Because, like,
Yeah.
because capitalism is evil, and if I have more money, then I'll be evil. Like,
Yeah.
fucking idiots.
It's,
Like,
yeah.
and
I
it
often
used
think
to
that
be that people grew out of
yeah.
communism, right?
Yeah.
It's not happening now.
Mm,
They
no.
used to grow out when they turned 30 or something,
Yeah.
when they
Well,
had their first child.
maybe they started to grow out of it when they started buying houses.
Yeah,
You know,
but now they're like, because
they can't buy a house.
the
Yeah.
houses are so out of reach for them. So now they're going to that concept, like, you will own nothing and you'll be happy, because
Mm,
they're, "Oh, I can't afford anything anyways, right?
mm,
I'll never be able to afford it.
yeah.
So why not nobody affords it then?"
Mm, mm,
That's what I'm saying. If you don't enable them to buy in, to have roots into the country, we need to build more houses. We need to make it cheaper. Doesn't matter how much of a hit the country takes. They're not gonna have families otherwise. They're not gonna have families. They're not gonna have roots. They're not gonna love this country, and they're not gonna fight for it because it's giving them nothing but, like, it's
Do you
just
think that
like,
this guilt? Do you think? I mean, I'm always sort of clutching at straws here, but the events of the past 3 weeks. Do you think that these people who've encouraged all this anti-Britishness and the um, the massive immigration of people who obviously hate us. Do you think this is going to give them pause for thought, that suddenly actually all these people that hate us are actually pretty fucking dangerous? Do you think they
Not
might
the
begin
communist,
to?
not the
Sorry?
communist.
No.
I don't think so, because the communists already know, right? So the communists, like
Do the
amongst them,
communists think? Do you think the communists think they're going to beat the Islamists?
oh,
Because
yeah, because they know their numbers are very low.
uh,
The Muslim numbers in this country are actually pretty low. Like, they're out there and they make us scared of it. The reason why I talk about it this much is because they are low right now,
mm,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So I'm scared of what happens when they are not low anymore.
mm, mm,
Even now, with as much as they are, they're still low comparatively
yeah,
what the native population is,
mm,
right? So the communists know that they can fizzle them out
mm,
if it need to be. And I think so. The communists are obviously using the woke ideology as well. You know, what do you think is going to happen to all these LGBTQ plus people under communism?
yeah, yeah.
The
Up against the
communists
wall.
don't believe in that crap. The communists don't use language to communicate.
Mm,
They use language to manipulate people, right? So they're just using these things, and they know that every one of these are in minority. Once they take over, then they're gonna have their vision of what the future is, you know and anyone who is against the West, then, and this is the same thing what Orwell was talking about during the World War II as well, as you were saying. Why were those people happy that Britain was losing
mm,
in certain battles and stuff like that? Not because they wanted to lose Britain, they want this land for their communist empire. Is
mm,
because they had those communist tendencies, because they saw anyone who's against the West is sort of their friend, because they
yeah,
have a sort of alliance. So why did the Nazis allied with Japan? They didn't, like, the Aryan race did not want Japanese, did they?
mm, mm,
They didn't think of them as superior or anything like that, but they aligned because they were both against an enemy.
mm,
And
mm,
this is the marriage between Islam and communism. I think so is because of this reason. It's not all the communists, like 99% of them are fucking stupid anyways. They're just following whatever the actual people are telling them to do, you know, because obviously they can't critically think. And this is the same problem with Muslims, because they are such entire, like, trapped with this group think, that they would, disregard the brutality of Hamas and anything like that, because they just are repeating the company line.
mm,
They told, like, oh yeah, whatever the evidence of fakery, of fake propaganda is so low, but they will still believe that,
mm,
because it's just confirming the bias. That's the same strand with them. This is something that Britain should have, like, dealt with a long time ago, the problem of communism.
mm,
Because, like, tolerance should come with temperance, right? Tolerance of anyone without any sort of temperance is going to lead to extremism, because, like, you tolerating someone so much, it's like, that's not what liberalism is about. Liberalism is not about everyone can do whatever the fuck they want. There are limits to it. Even
mm,
liberalism itself puts limits to it, you know and I think so, like, we have gone to that point where we are tolerating everything and we have temperance towards nothing.
yeah,
What is going to happen when an enemy, do you have an enemy within? This is not a group of people. This is a clear enemy whose objective, whose religious, ideological, dogmatic objective is to conquer the world one day. Everyone will be Muslim.
mm,
This is not a matter of metaphorical truth. This is a fact, a promise from God given to them. The whole world will be Muslim.
mm,
So they take it upon themselves in whatever ways they can to make the will of God happen.
mm,
This is an enemy that Europe, like, Americans don't understand this, right? Because they don't have they don't have context of history because they haven't lived among over here for that long, and they have been distant. Their European ancestry has been broken in that way that their
mm,
minds have diverted to their own world. So their conspiratorial right is very problematic because they're so anti-Israel, or they're so anti, like,
mm, mm,
Ukraine and stuff. They don't understand these dangers of Russia or Ukraine or Iran because they're not over here. But
mm,
Europeans have been fighting Islam for a very, very long time now.
mm,
And I think so after World War II, they just fucking forgot that they are the enemy.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's I think that's the thing that we have to sort of acknowledge, is that these people are seeking to conquer us.
Yeah.
Uh,
And people who say not all of them. It's like, I agree with that, not all of them. But the reason why I'm saying again and again for the West to understand that Islam is its enemy is because then you act accordingly, right? So if anyone is anyone who's agreeing with any of the terrorist rhetoric, you kick them out, right? You act as if they are your enemy, that they're not just saying it, they mean to act it if they are given the chance, right? So why are you waiting for that chance to happen?
mm.
So
It does seem completely daft when people tell you they hate you, tell you
yeah,
they're going to kill you, tell you they're going to conquer you, and and then we all just go home and have tea.
yeah,
I mean,
it's sort of like, what do you think is going to happen in the future? It's like, where is this leading? What do they want to do about it? And stuff like, it's sort of like, and I'm saying, like, to recognize that as an enemy, because then you give the room to moderate Muslims to actually be able to reform Islam, right? So when you start kicking out these imams,
yeah,
when you start putting people in jail and stuff for like, having intentions to being against the country and stuff like that, then you force the Muslims to say, okay, well, if you want to live over here, you got to play by our rules.
mm,
You don't want to play the game like this, then go away. And the
mm,
Muslims who want to play the game, then they will be forced to recognize the problems within their own religion that is detrimental to themselves, which is why I say it, because I don't want like all the Muslims gone from Europe and stuff. I don't have hatred towards the people. It's the ideology that I'm attacking because it needs to be reformed, and it will only be reformed when it is clear to everyone that there's a problem with it.
mm,
You know, the more that we curtail to them, the more that we say, oh no, it's like, oh, we don't want to be Islamophobic.
mm,
There's a reason why Islamists created that word Islamophobic, to protect their extremism. The more that we let them do it, the more they're gonna remain that extremist. Like, those groups that are over here are not even allowed in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and those in the Arab world.
yeah,
They don't allow them to bank over there, they don't allow them to exist over there. And like, most of, they're happy for them to fuck off from their countries, because they're like, oh yeah, we want these elements gone from here, and
mm,
we're just hoovering them up. While this is happening, our government is taking in 3,000 Afghani refugees from Pakistan.
yeah,
Pakistan is kicking them out.
yeah,
Right? A place like Pakistan is kicking them out, and we're
yeah,
saying, oh, we'll have them.
yeah,
Why? Because we were there for so long, for 10 years or whatever, and we didn't fix those problems, and we feel like responsible and stuff. It's like, no, ultimately, it's their fucking country. They
mm,
deal with Taliban. I don't give a fuck. Why
mm,
do you want these people over here?
mm. Yeah. I mean, it does seem
While this is happening, while
bizarre.
the Hamas protest and stuff are, while this is happening,
Mm, yeah,
while you're seeing their true faces, there's so many of these Muslim celebrities and stuff that are coming out, right? A lot of them are appear in so many TVs and whatnot, and they put out these statements, anti-Israel statements and stuff. They hide their anti-Semitism behind anti-Israel. That's why I have a problem. Like, oh, they call them, oh yeah, it's a evil Zionist and stuff. It's like, you don't have a problem with that,
mm,
because if you had a problem with Zionism, then you would have a problem with Islamic states
Yeah. Yeah.
because they
Yeah. That's a
all
good point. Yeah. Yeah. That's a
right.
good point. Yeah.
They don't have a problem with Zionism
Mm.
because all their states are is the Islamic Republic of this, the Islamic State of this, and this is the State of Islam. So Saudi Arabia is the
Mm.
they have a problem with Jews, and people need to recognize that. It's like, yeah, we can criticize Israel,
Mm.
and we can even put Netanyahu in prison and whatnot, but that can happen within the democratic sort of rule, and that can happen. But right now we are facing a threat. I believe we are facing an existential threat with an
Mm.
enemy that we are curtailing to. It's like,
Mm.
I don't care what Israel has done or has not done
Mm.
right now. The the point to back them is the same point to back Ukraine.
Mm.
It's because we are protecting our wider borders
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and the internal borders as well.
without wanting to ask you to solve a 3,000-year-old um, issue, in an hour and a half chat. Yeah. I mean, I feel sort of a bit childish asking this, but I mean, what is it? Why do they hate the Jews so much? Because this last 3 weeks has shown that
Ah,
there are people, and not just supposedly Palestinians or Hamas types, but quite a lot of people who, during the COVID stuff, and I totally agreed with and was felt as if I was
yeah.
part of the resistance, and they're coming down very, very hard against Israel.
Hmm.
And it sounds, I mean, I can't say for certain, but a lot of it does sound like they just don't like the Jews.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the this interesting. So I think so the part of the progressive left and the communists, the Marxists, all their kind, they hate the Jews, they hate the Israel state, right? They obviously don't hate that much the progressive Jews, but they hate Israel because they are the emblem of capitalism. The Jews are the sort of like the ideal capitalist, right? They strive, they work, and they make something out of it, and they become better. That is the good concept of not the you know cronyism, but the actual essence of capitalism. So I think so they see them as an enemy because of that reason, right?
Mm,
And that's why they have these conspiratorial theories and stuff. Oh yeah, the Jews control everything,
mm,
as if like I'm sorry, but they're successful, so what do you want them to do with their money?
mm,
Obviously they're going to buy companies and stuff, and they would want, like, and they don't, if they were controlling the world, would they be letting this happen to their promised land? Like, how fucking stupid is that? The thing that comes from the strain of Muslims hating it,
mm.
so I mean that hate is sanctioned in the religion. There's hadiths, which is the like the sayings of the prophet, that says, like, there will come a time, when they will have no place to hide, the Jews. And even when they hide behind the bush is gonna say, like, there's a
Yeah,
Jew
oh,
behind
there's a
me.
Jew behind me. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
kill them and stuff like that. There are other places, it's interesting that in Quran the God is actually talking about the Jews and stuff, but he's talking about them in a way that he wants them to join Islam, right?
Right.
So this is my theory. Like, obviously I'm not a scholar in those things, but I have a feeling it's a inferiority complex, or like a jealousy sort of a thing, that the reason was it that they wanted Jews to become Muslims, and they were trying to convince them. It's like, oh, it's a continuation of your religion, like, just like, you should come over here, because they were the more powerful sort of, like, group in those lands of Arabs, right? So the Arab lands, but they were just like Bedouins and nomads and stuff like that. They didn't really have countries and stuff, like, um and they saw them as more powerful and stuff, so they thought, like, like, if I introduce something and I become the prophet, like, then they can become under me, who already have all these their lands and stuff. And you have to recognize, Muslims say, like, Prophet Muhammad was like illiterate, so, all these things came to him, the revelation, so how could he have made it up? Like, he was illiterate. He was not an idiot, right? He just didn't know how to read, or he told them he didn't know how to read. He was a businessman. When he was 20 years old, he married a 40-year-old woman, Khadija, who had the biggest business in the whole of lands of Arab. He married her for love, right?
Mm.
And he worked for her, and he went and he traveled all of these areas, the Egypt and this and that. That's where he picked up all his mythologies from to make Islam, right? So he knew about those lands. He had empire mentality of how to do this. So I have a feeling that he had a resentment towards the Jews, and he wanted to conquer them anyways, and he was trying to first appease to them. And that can also be seen. The prophet went from Makkah to Medina. In Makkah, he was prosecuted too much by those people, and they was telling him like, "You're bringing in false god away, fuck off from here." The Medina was controlled by the Jews, and the Jews gave him refuge. And
Yeah.
within a few years, there were barely any Jews left because he prosecuted them when he took over those lands.
Right.
Right. So he was trying to incorporate them. That's why before Muslims started praying towards Makkah, in Kaaba, like that black box,
Mm.
they used to pray facing Aqsa, the mosque, like towards there, you know, the dome. There wasn't a mosque over there at that time.
What, in Jerusalem?
Yeah.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
used to pray over there. And then there was some whatever he had a dream or whatever the fuck he had it, because that's also the point where he travels to the seven heavens, Prophet Muhammad, right? So that's where he goes on that winged horse or whatever, like, winged donkey or whatever, and then he goes to the seven heavens from there. So they revered the Abrahamic faiths and they revered Judaism so much. But because Judaism were like, nah, we sort of like, shrugged off Christians as well.
Mm.
Our religion is our religion. We're not gonna, dilute ourselves. So that's, I think so, that point that he's sort of like turned from Aqsa, that point from Jerusalem to Saudi Arabia. And I was like, okay, now I'm gonna fuck you guys because you're not listening to me. I
So
think
this is
that's
talk.
the hatred.
It seems to be, because I've seen some quite heartbreaking videos of not just on the Palestinian side, but of Palestinian children,
Hmm.
10 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old, saying they hate Jews,
Yeah,
and by the same token, also,
you can find the
Orthodox Jews,
Pakistani kids doing that as well. So,
also Orthodox Jews saying that they want to kill Palestinians, and
hmm.
Palestinians.
Yeah,
It's all really rather depressing, all this
yeah,
sort of stuff. So, and it does appear to me as if this is a certain level of brainwashing. Now,
yeah. Oh yeah,
so how come you're not brainwashed?
I was.
You were, right?
But the thing is, the families within the Islamic culture that are more educated, they are usually not prone or are more successful, prosperous. They're not prone towards, these sort of things. They reject those things. They choose not to believe those parts of the religion. So that happens in Christianity, that happens in Judaism, like in all those, like any religion that happens. So I think so. The education was one of the main reasons, and it was always my nature not to hate first. And that, my experiences of, because I was sort of a quiet kid always, but always asking why.
Mm.
Right. So even in school, I used to get so much punishment because I used to ask the teacher so much, and she would be like, "Go fuck off, stand outside the class
Troublemaker.
because I don't want to talk to you." Like, because I was like, I don't tell me how this, like, what happened. I want to know why it happened, how it happened. Like, I want to know that. So I think so that curiosity eventually led me to not be hateful. And like I said, like I was among the people who were saying, "Oh, Britain is bad." But even as a younger kid, I was reading the history and stuff, and logically, I couldn't hate. I was like, "Oh no," but there's so much to admire. Like, they've done this, they've done that. Like, and it's the same with Jews. Like, well, they have such a fucking long history. Like, and the the concepts that they have, and that the way that they sort of discuss their own religions and stuff. Yeah, there's all like a lot of shit in every religion, but it's the basis of doubt. within Judaism that is allowed to happen. That's the basis of science, like, of that doubt, consistent
Yeah.
doubt, and start questioning and stuff. You can't have doubt in Islam.
No, doubt is a virtue, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's like, well, those the cultures and stuff, like, if you have admiration for them, it becomes hard for you to hate them. And plus, because I was always an outsider anyways, like, in my own head,
Mm.
it was just, and those are the things that made me leave the religion.
Mm.
Because, like,
Was
I
that
found the
difficult?
god of hatred in there.
Was that difficult? I mean, was that, did
Very,
you have friends and
yeah, very difficult, because for it took me a very, very long time, because I wanted to make sure I went into Sufism a bit more. I went into Daism at a point where I said, like, okay, maybe there's a god, maybe there's no religion, which is my standpoint even now, that there.
Sufism? That is that a very sort of mild
Yes,
version of?
Sufism is sort of, it's more towards spiritual side. They also have, like, they also believe in the Quran and stuff like that, but they sort of tend towards more towards love, and they're inclusive of other religions coming towards them as well without having to give up their religion,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
So
Uh,
tending towards love sounded more attractive than kill the Jews.
yeah, for some reason, so, and it's sort of like I always had that tendency towards sort of like vague spirituality, which I just couldn't place. Like, there was some connection that I wanted, right? So I didn't have a connection of country, I didn't have a connection of people. So it's all like, we are human beings and we look for those connections. So I was always like spiritual in that sense, not in the tarot card reading sense, but like in that sort of sense, right? And I just couldn't find a spiritual peace within this particular religion. There were so many fundamental things. I just, like, one of the fundamental things is that Islam allows you to lie,
Right.
and that has never sat well with me. It's like,
What's that? A taqiyya or something is called?
yeah, I think so, it's called takia or something
Yeah.
like that. But it's a fact that makes him not a god to me.
Mm.
Because God is not supposed to be reasonable. God is supposed to ask you the impossible.
Mm.
And then when you fail to deliver the impossible because of practical reasons, then you commit a sin, and then you can ask for salvation, right?
Mm.
But God is not there to appease you. You are there to appease God in the religious text, right? So he's obviously supposed to be unreasonable.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
supposed to be that king that wants, like, everything, but obviously you can't do it. So he's going to scold you, but he can't be reasonable. He can't say, okay, yeah, do this, because that's not a God then. That is a prophet who had the empire building idea, because he was a businessman, he traveled everywhere, and his religion was made in a way to conquer the Jews, to conquer these lands and stuff like that. That makes it non-spiritual. And that's what, because the God of Quran, like, comes off as like very controlling and stuff, very communist in that sense. There's a very strand of communism within Islam. It's sort of like, well, you're not really trying to reach some sort of spiritual harmony. It's an empire building religion. Once it became clear to me, you know that click that happens, like,
Mm.
then I was like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, this is, I read the Bible, I read the other, like, religious texts and stuff. That made more sense to me, even though, like, I was disillusioned from religion completely. And I went like very atheistic for a very long time,
Mm. Mm.
till I mellowed that and became an agnostic. When I was like, well, you actually don't really know. Basically, that's the whole point. Like, you don't
Yeah.
know what you don't know. It is the unknown.
Mm.
God is the unknown for me. So,
Mm.
you know, so yeah, but it was hard to leave it. It's not easy, because it's, I'm not like, I haven't broken up from my parents and stuff like that, because obviously, they're not um like that sort of Muslims. Like, their religion is very personal to them. That's what
Mm.
everyone has always, like, that's what was supposed to be Islam in some sense. But I haven't, like, I was still talking to my friends and stuff like that. We'll take the piss out of each other. They'll take the piss out of me, like, for leaving Islam or whatnot, but they don't want to kill me.
That's
So
nice. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Well, we
yeah,
take the piss because they know that I'm coming from a place of knowledge and stuff, not from the place of evil, right? And not from the place of hedonism. Right? I'm not just leaving Islam because I want to fucking drink alcohol and like fuck bitches and stuff. Want to like, party and stuff like that. They know that's not where I'm coming from. It's an ideological conflict with my head. Like I'm coming from a place of knowledge for it.
yeah. The
So
religion of fucking bitches. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
But
Um,
like what these few years have or should have opened our eyes towards, or a few days, sorry, not years, is that problem that I was talking about before about dual nationality. I think so.
yeah,
It's time to end it. I think so. It's time to end it.
yeah. I've often thought that. Actually, I've never really
Doesn't make sense to me.
articulated it, but I've always thought it always sounds a bit as if you're hedging your bet somehow.
Yeah.
Even if it's just somebody's British and French. It's like, well,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
it?
We British and French has been fighting for 1,000 years, right? So they
Well,
have a
that's
1,000 years of history of fighting.
yeah,
So it's only a little bit of lull where we haven't fought each other. So
that's
it
true.
might come a point where we will, you
Yeah,
know.
it won't take much to
So
kick it off, will it?
who you gonna be loyal to, right?
Yeah,
So tell me this, like all these Pakistanis that are in Britain, if Britain has to attack Pakistan for some reason,
yeah,
are
yeah.
they going to fight for Britain, or are they going to be sleeper agents? Because they're
Well,
going to be sleeper agents, right?
yeah,
Are they not going to destroy from within? So what is this fucking stupidity? India doesn't allow this for
mm,
this very reasons and stuff, because they're like, no, you either, if you take a nationality, a foreign nationality, they automatically revoke your nationality. It's like, well, you're not Indian then, right? It makes how can I be loyal to two different lands? But people like usually say, oh, but like I live here and I have that. It's like, I understand it, but you
mm,
can have residencies, permanent residencies, and like there's other legal processes where you don't have to um, give your oath of allegiance to that land, because then you're lying. If you're coming to Britain and you still hold your Pakistani nationality, your Saudi Arabian nationality, or whatever the fuck other nationality, like French or Belgium or Polish or whatever, then you're lying when you're taking the oath.
mm,
Because the oath is saying that you hold all your fucking loyalty to the king.
yeah, yeah,
How can you then? How can you then? Like, because then you're lying. And technically, we have to put this in the law. Technically, they haven't taken the oath
yeah, yeah.
that
I,
they
I,
are.
I read from some guy who was like he was a Muslim. He might have been a Pakistani or somewhere, and he took the oath, but he didn't say anything.
Yeah,
Didn't actually say anything, but
yeah.
they gave him citizenship anyway. It's
But
like,
what? Why have we made this into like a fucking Tesco club card? Like this,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
taking
Yeah,
a passport of a country is this is not documentation.
mm,
Why don't people fucking understand that this is a privilege that the people of those lands are extending towards you, welcoming you to their country
mm,
as an equal to live, right? This is a fucking privilege, and we don't we don't respect it ourselves enough.
no, that's
Why
true.
do
That's
we
what,
expect other people to respect it?
yeah,
So many
yeah,
people kicked up a fuss about, oh, my passport is changing from burgundy to fucking black or whatever
mm,
because we're leaving EU. It's like, who do you hold loyalty to? Your country or your fucking EU?
yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, there's
These are the issues, like, and this is why I'm against dual nationality, because a lot of the problems can be solved.
mm,
Because there was this sociologist, I can't remember his name, but he said like that in order to understand the motives that migrants have for choosing a particular legal status or exercising a particular citizenship right, we need to look at the citizenship opportunity structure that is jointly produced by the countries of origin and of settlement, right? So if we are not if we if we have that, like, you can only have our nationality and not the other nationality, there's a lot of people who would not want that.
mm,
So they would we can give them the option to degrade themselves to the indefinite leave to remain or permanent residency, because then they have the equal rights, but we can still deport them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I would agree. Yeah,
yeah, so the danger of deportation is there, right? That will make people follow the rules, because you have to make people follow the laws, otherwise you have anarchy, right? So otherwise, if you want anarchy, then fucking let's have it. You know,
mm.
give me right to defend as well. Like, then, because I don't
Yeah,
have right to
exactly.
defend myself
Yeah,
right now. But
exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Yeah,
yeah,
it's and the way the police have been behaving, we know that they're not going to
yeah,
protect us. So
no,
I'd say, well, okay, then don't. Okay, look, we know you're not going to protect us. Then let us protect
yeah,
ourselves.
that is
Exactly.
a part of America I agree with,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think we should
Because
have it here.
yeah, because this we have like this pussification of West has gone on for so long now.
Yeah.
We have made everyone into a fucking pussy. With our
Mm.
laws have made it in us like that, right? We can't defend ourselves. We can't carry any sort of weapon or stuff. We can't even have it at home. If a burglar comes in at home and I beat the shit out of him, I'll be in fucking trouble.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
but what the fuck? An Englishman's home was supposed to be his fucking castle, wasn't it? So what
Mm.
happened there then?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. 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 Well,
it's
this is. I think that you know,
but dual nationality is a key to resolving this.
yeah, yeah. I think it
Giving
probably is. Yeah.
people who don't have citizenships, not giving them the right to vote as well.
Yeah, because
Because
there
like,
are people. There are people who would like to just have um would just like to be without having to lie.
yeah,
Which
my
is what
wife. So my
which
wife, like, right. So my wife is Polish, and she's very loyal Polish. She loves her country as she should. She didn't want to take nationality when she was given the choice. She's taken indefinite leave to remain.
Hmm.
But she was like, well, I'm not British. Like, I love this country. I love living over here, and I love the culture. I love the people. Like, and I want to work here and live here and stuff. But I don't want to lie.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
like, this is an example. Like, this is how both of us are. It's like I took the British nationality because I do not hold loyalty to any other country. I found a country that I would fight for, right? I found a country that already before coming over here, who I used to support while watching cricket
Oh, right.
against Pakistan, right? So, so
uh,
right. So it's like, so I did,
you passed the cricket test. Do you know? Do you remember Norman Tebbit was a British minister in Margaret Thatcher's government? Lord Tebbit, Norman
oh,
Tebbit,
yeah,
and he said that all the way back in the 80s.
yeah,
These people, they need to pass the cricket test.
yeah,
So that when England plays Pakistan or India, do these people support England or
yeah.
do they support Pakistan or India? You know,
Even in football, like I was in living in Pakistan, whatever, and every time the World Cup used to come in, I was supporting England. It was a very natural thing for me to do, and I didn't understand till I came over here that okay, yeah, my sensibilities are like it just aligns. It was just supposed to happen. I
mm,
was just
mm,
by mistake of like the universal mistake, I was born in the wrong country, but I found my way. But unlike like I just think like unless you have some variation of that sympathy, of that loyalty, you can't be you can't call yourself like how can these people call themselves British just because they have passports?
mm.
Eh, no, like it's just weird. It's like why are we accepting them to be like that? It's like, okay, I have a French passport, then either you're French or you're English, right? So
Mm.
if you're not British, then you live over here as long as you want, contribute to the society and stuff. But when a war happens, we know not to call upon you then.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, that's
you're not British, right?
yeah, yeah, because you can't rely on them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
and if we had a war with French, let's say, hopefully in the next year or so, and then we can monitor them, right? Technically, we
yeah,
can monitor those people who are French but have not taken French, because that's what happened when we were at war in World War II as well, and afterwards during the Cold War and stuff. That we kept tabs on communists, right? Because we knew that their loyalties are towards Soviet Union.
yes, that's right. Yeah,
It's a fucking sensible thing to do.
yeah,
The government's job is to protect its people. That's the only fucking job that they have, because
Yeah.
they're not good at governing. They're
No.
supposed to protect the people. The only reason why the kings were there were to protect their fucking land, so that they pay for the armies and stuff or whatever. They didn't have a stand-in army most of the time, but so that they protect them under the boundaries of their castle. People would live over there. That's the main concept of main purpose of government. So how can we have a functioning government who's letting our enemies in and allowing any fucker to live over here?
Yeah. I mean, it is astonishing the completely indiscriminate nature of anybody at all can come here. Anybody.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
And
matter
so
who you
like
are.
people can call me like whatever they want to call me. I don't give a fuck. But it wouldn't happen even in Pakistan, right? The Pakistan would not allow people. That's why they're kicking out Afghanis, the Afghani refugees, because they're like, no, they're not Pakistanis. They're causing problems over here. Fuck off,
Yeah.
right? So why are they doing it? Why would any country do that? Why would India would do that? Saudi Arabia would do that. Spain would do that. Every country would do that. Not Spain, because EU has lost that strain anyways. They're the ones who started bringing people in who don't like them. But other non-Western countries, all non-Western countries, would do that. They would not give nationality to people who don't speak their language. They would not give their nationality to people who are like, who don't like them and who want to destroy them. Unless those countries are very, very corrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there you go. There's the.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because we think like, oh, British culture is inclusivity and diversity.
Yeah, which means nothing at all, doesn't it?
What the fuck does that mean?
It just means that's so
People who think the same but are of different color, basically.
Yeah, it just means what that means is that British culture will prioritize everybody else's culture.
Yeah,
that's what that means.
Well, it means British culture is nothing.
Yeah,
because it means British culture depends on other people's culture. It's like, no, that might have been the line used for the British Empire because they were trying to keep everyone together.
Yeah,
they could have been used at that time, but they still didn't use it at that time. Now it doesn't like really fucking make any sense. The diversity of culture in Britain is the Cornish culture, the culture like the Essex culture, the culture of Yorkshire, the culture of Wales, the culture of Scotland, the culture of Northern Ireland. Though that is the diversity of culture in Britain. Not the culture from like they cannot that they have to assimilate to the culture already over here. But
it doesn't sound like a revolutionary idea, does it? It sounds very eminently sensible, but
it makes sense to me. So.
Yeah. Look, we've been talking for a while now, so I think we probably ought to wrap it up. But it's been fascinating. Before we go, I'd just like to ask your initial, interest in British culture. Was it literature or
literature? Because media wise, it was more American influence. Like it is what we were exposed to. Like in Kuwait, like we had the all the American cartoons, American movies, and game shows and stuff like that. That was coming through. So like I'm very American in that mindset of like a freedom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But literature wise, it was Britain first. I read Shakespeare when I was, I think, so 12 years old or something.
Wow.
So I was hooked on like from way before on in other sort of like stories and stuff like that. There was American literature anyways, but there was more British sort of and because I'm always interested in history and stuff, so it's such a natural place to read history about because there's so fucking much.
Yeah, it's pretty deep, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
almost like we have a very rich culture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's been fascinating chatting to you, mate. We'll hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Yes.
But we'll be keeping an eye on what's happening, and hopefully some people will find their backbone. You know, some people in government, and you know, maybe some, you know, we live in hope that they might, you know,
Yeah.
but until then, I
Something
guess
has
it's
to
up to,
change. Yeah.
I guess it's up to us, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah. I mean, the more we talk about it, the more we open about it, the more we make it normal to love the country and to stand up for, on country and culture and values and stuff. That's why I'm telling people, like, maybe it's time to go back to the churches, because when you leave your homes empty, that's when the invaders come in. And
yeah,
because you don't have to believe in Christ, but I think so it's time for people to go back to the churches, fill up their churches, and as a show of power even, and as a show of community strength more than power, like, that we are united, and we don't like your anti-Semitic ideas, we don't like your this brutish mentality, we don't like your sharias, we don't like any of that. We are a community. You want to come over here, you assimilate to this, or on your way, but
I think
that's it's a
I
time.
think you're right. I think we have to do more of that.
Yeah,
But anyway, mate, it's been like I say, it's been fascinating. So, and thanks very much for your time.
no
And
worries.
now, by the way, where can find you on YouTube
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff?
so if people
I'll try to put this in the description as well. So,
yeah, so I have a podcast, like I said, about history and mythology on it's called the World of Momus podcast. I am going to have episodes over there, hopefully at some point, with my own thoughts and stuff, because right now it's only about history, mythology, some poetry that I read, and short stories and stuff like that, but eventually I'm going to have my own thoughts as well. And people can also find me on Twitter. It's the same, at the World of Momus, or Instagram, Facebook, and everywhere else. My podcast is on Spotify and Rumble as well. So yeah.
okay, well, I'll put everything in the description
Oh,
so
thank you.
everyone can find you. So, anyway, until next time, mate. It's been lovely to talk to you, and stay free.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, man.
uh, Bye.